So I want to start with a quote today. You must treat your employees with respect and dignity because in the most automated factory in the world, you need the power of human mind. That is what brings innovation.
Oh, that's a powerful one.
Right. And it continues. If you want high-quality minds to work for you, then you must protect their respect and dignity. That's from NR and Ariana Murthy.
You're founder of Infosys, right?
Exactly. And I love starting with that because it completely shatters the legacy mindset that most of us have about the workplace.
Oh, totally.
Because let's be honest, for you, the person listening to this deep dive right now, just hearing the letters HR
Mhm.
probably triggers a very specific image.
Yeah, you're probably thinking about the people who, process your payroll or handle compliance complaints.
Or nag you about clicking through those mandatory corporate training modules before Friday.
Right, the endless modules.
What?
And that administrative reputation is just, well, it's incredibly stubborn, but it completely misses the reality of what modern management has actually become today.
Which is exactly what our deep dive is about today, right? We're looking at the evolution of human resource management.
Yes, and we are looking at a radical evolution. I mean, we've moved from an era where workers were viewed as literal biological cogs in an industrial machine to a reality where human capital is understood to be the absolute primary driver of any organizational success.
And understanding that paradigm shift isn't just, corporate trivia. It directly impacts you, the listener. It changes how you view your own career trajectory, how you calculate your value in the market.
Yeah, and why your workplace environment is structured the way it is right now.
Exactly. So to see how we got here, we really have to look at the foundational architecture of management theory itself.
Right, because every enterprise relies on what we call the classic 5 M's of management.
The 5 minutes, let's unpack those.
Sure. So you have money, machines, materials, methods, and men. Or, using the modern inclusive terminology, human resources.
Got it.
And human resource management focuses entirely on that first M.
Okay, but let's pause there because that first M is fundamentally different from the other four.
Right. Oh, completely. That distinction is the crux of the entire field. I mean, money, machines, materials, methods, those are predictable. They're static inputs.
Right, like you can forecast a machine's depreciation perfectly on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. And raw materials don't suddenly decide they feel unfulfilled and want to transition into a new industry.
They don't have bad days.
No, they don't. The first M is the only asset that actively appreciates or depreciates based on psychological variables.
So human capital introduces volatility.
Massive volatility. You can't just plug a human into a socket and expect a guaranteed output, which is what makes managing that resource incredibly complex.
And that volatility is why defining this field has been such a challenge for, decades?
Yeah, absolutely. Management scientists have debated this for a long time, but one of the most accurate frameworks we have comes from John Story.
What does he say?
He defined HRM as a distinctive approach to employment management that seeks, and I'll quote here, competitive advantage through the strategic deployment of a highly committed and capable workforce.
Strategic deployment.
Right, that's the key phrase. It elevates human labor from just an operational cost to a strategic weapon.
But wait, if we look at how actual businesses operate, it's really easy to be cynical about this.
Oh, sure.
Like, is strategic deployment just old wine in a new bottle? I mean, it often feels like executives just took the traditional bureaucratic personnel department, slapped the shiny new HRM label on the door, and changed absolutely nothing about how the business actually runs.
Critics make that exact argument all the time. They assume it's merely a rebranding exercise. But beneath the surface, true HRM is a fundamentally different architecture.
How so?
Well, traditional personnel management was siloed, it was reactive. If someone quit, you hired a replacement.
If there's a dispute, you mediated it.
Exactly. But modern HRM is built on complex, integrated subsystems. You have continuous performance appraisals, proactive career development tracks, organizational development initiatives.
And the strategic reward systems, right?
Yeah.
All feeding into each other.
Yes, constantly.
It's like a closed feedback loop. So if an appraisal reveals you lack a specific skill, the development subsystem immediately triggers training, and then the reward subsystem incentivizes you to master it.
Exactly. The old models completely lacked that integration.
But getting to this integrated model didn't happen overnight. It required centuries of trial and error.
Centuries.
Yeah.
And the historical missteps regarding the philosophy of labor are just staggering.
Let's go through that timeline because it really proves this isn't just a new label.
Yeah. If we trace the evolution back to before the Industrial Revolution, we find the commodity concept.
The commodity concept.
Right. Within the old guild systems, labor was literally viewed as a commodity. A worker's output was bought and sold in the exact same manner as a sack of grain.
Wow. Just a line item on a ledger.
Literally. And then the Industrial Revolution hits, and we enter the factor of production concept. This was heavily dominated by F.W. Taylor's theory of scientific management.
Scientific management. This is the stopwatch era, right?
Exactly. Taylor evaluated work by aggressively dissecting tasks into their smallest possible components through time and motion studies.
So a manager basically stands there with a stopwatch, timing exactly how many seconds it takes a worker to shovel coal or tighten a specific bolt.
Right, and the whole goal is intense scientific planning to shave off seconds and maximize output.
But the psychological state of the person holding the wrench is entirely irrelevant.
Irrelevant and actively ignored. The worker was merely another factory input.
But treating humans as unfeeling inputs inevitably causes friction, obviously.
Of course. And as trade unions began to form and workers organized collectively, management was forced to adapt. So they adopted what we call the paternalistic concept.
The paternalistic, so like a father figure.
Basically. Employers started taking on a protective attitude. A pioneer here was Robert Owen, who pushed for radical concepts for the time, like the 8-hour workday.
But Owen wasn't doing this purely out of the goodness of his heart, was he?
Well, no, he realized the mechanism of efficiency. If you don't exhaust your workforce to the point of literal collapse, their hourly output actually increases.
But it's a step up from treating people like coal, but it's still kind of treating workers like children who need a guardian to limit their hours.
Exactly. The true philosophical rupture doesn't happen until the 1920s.
With Elton Mayo.
Yes, Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne studies. This birthed the humanitarian concept.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that study, because the results are fascinating to me.
Yeah, so Mayo conducted experiments at the Western Electric Company's Hawthorne Works. Initially, he was just trying to figure out if changing the factory lighting would improve productivity.
Right, so they turn the lights up and productivity increases.
Correct.
But then they dim the lights and productivity still increases.
Right. The variable changing the output had nothing to do with the physical environment. Mayo discovered that the workers were simply reacting to the fact that management was paying attention to them.
Oh, wow.
They felt observed and valued. This was revolutionary hard data proving that workers' psychological needs, informal group dynamics, and human relations directly influence their physical output.
So the psychological variable finally enters the equation.
Finally.
But early management theorists had a habit of taking nuanced psychological insights and making them incredibly literal, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us to the early 1960s and the infamous pet milk principle.
The pet milk principle. I love this one.
It's wild. So the human relations movement developed this widely held belief that happy workers are productive workers. And management scientists quite literally liken this to the agricultural idea that happy cows produce more milk.
Right.
The theory was if you provide a pleasant environment and keep the herd content, the yield automatically goes up.
But treating people like livestock completely misses the point. It misses the nuance of human complexity.
Exactly.
I mean, it implies a monolithic workforce that just wants a nice pasture. But what motivates one listener tuning in right now might actively demotivate another.
Oh, for sure.
Like, one person needs an isolated, quiet environment to code in peace, while another thrives on the adrenaline of leading a high-stakes client pitch. Being simply content or satisfied doesn't magically translate to high performance.
And that exact realization dismantled the pet milk principle. Management scientists recognized that human desires are heterogeneous. We aren't a monolith.
Right.
This led to the behavioral human resource concept, which shifted the focus to analyzing actual organizational behavior. It incorporated complex frameworks like motivation theory, group dynamics, conflict resolution.
It finally acknowledged that employees are unique, complex assets.
Yes, and the ultimate goal is to figure out how to align a worker's personal, individual aspirations with the organization's overarching goals.
Because our understanding of human behavior changed so drastically, the actual corporate structure had to change with it.
It had to be completely rebuilt.
And this is where we see the great divide between traditional personnel management and modern HRM. Let's break down those differences.
The contrast in the mechanics of these two systems is stark. Take their fundamental approach to employee relations. Traditional personnel management operates within a pluralist collective framework.
Meaning management and labor are viewed as having inherently competing interests.
Right. It's a zero-sum game.
So the assumption is a low-trust environment where both sides are constantly negotiating against each other.
Exactly. But HRM completely discards that for a unitarist, individualized model.
Unitarist?
Yeah, it operates on the assumption of a single shared organizational goal. It's built on a high-trust environment where the employee is treated as an individual partner rather than a member of an opposing faction.
So if we look at this mechanically, traditional personnel management is kind of like a firefighter or, like antivirus software.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, it's highly bureaucratic, reactive, and its primary function is cost minimization and damage control. It's just trying to quarantine a virus like a labor dispute or sudden resignation after it already breaks out.
Yes, exactly.
But HRM operates more like the core iOS operating system. If the marketing and finance departments are the apps, HRM is the operating system running quietly in the background, proactively managing the battery life and processing power.
That's a great way to look at it.
And if that OS isn't optimized for the hardware, the apps crash.
Right. The focus moves from mere cost minimization to maximum utilization. The question becomes, how can we optimize this operating system to get the absolute highest performance out of this incredibly volatile, powerful human asset?
But here's the thing. A high-trust, decentralized operating system is incredibly fragile in practice. Theory is great, but applying it to a real economy is messy.
Very messy.
And you can see this collision perfectly if you look at the real-world case study of India's evolution over the last few decades.
India provides a brilliant roadmap for this transition. So in the 1980s, you had figures like Uday Parikh and TV Rao championing these HRM concepts. But the landscape was dominated by massive public sector enterprises.
Organizations like Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited or the State Bank of India.
Exactly. And in those heavy manufacturing and traditional banking sectors, the personnel and industrial relations departments were primarily dealing with blue-collar administrative issues.
Union negotiations, basic labor welfare, the old antivirus software.
Right, but then the 1990s and early 2000s hit, and the IT and service sectors absolutely exploded.
And that changed everything.
The macroeconomic environment shifted completely. It demanded a radical transformation in how talent was managed because the demographics of the workforce inverted.
Yeah, suddenly corporations were hiring tens of thousands of employees who were mostly in their mid-20s or early 30s.
Highly educated, hyper-aware, and completely disconnected from the traditional manufacturing mindset.
And more importantly, their concept of loyalty fundamentally changed, didn't it?
This is the crucial part. An engineer in this new economy is committed to their profession, their specific skill set in software development or data analysis, rather than being loyal to the organization that currently signs their paycheck.
Which creates a massive structural problem, high attrition.
Exactly. Talent became the scarcest resource in the market. If an organization didn't cultivate a compelling environment, these highly specialized workers simply walked across the street to a competitor.
So here's where it gets really interesting. Because talent became scarce, the mechanics of the labor market basically forced HR to evolve into a marketing department.
Absolutely. To compete for scarce resources, HR had to take on employer brand building. They had to actively market the internal corporate culture to attract top talent and then design incredibly complex retention systems to keep them there.
Which fundamentally altered corporate strategy at the board level.
Oh, yeah. Reducing turnover is no longer just an HR metric. It is a major competitive advantage because it slashes the massive recruitment and replacement costs associated with losing specialized knowledge workers.
And that strategic elevation is what shapes the modern framework we work in today. Because modern HR is built on 4 very specific cascading layers of objectives.
Yes, let's look at how these 4 layers interact, starting with the broadest one, societal objectives.
Societal objectives, what does that cover?
Well, an organization does not exist in a vacuum, right? It operates with the permission of the society around it. So HR is responsible for ensuring legal and ethical compliance.
Like what, specifically?
This involves managing employee benefits, preventing workplace discrimination, and navigating local legal frameworks. For instance, reservation policies, which ensure specific demographic representation and equity in hiring.
Right.
If HR fails to meet these societal expectations, the government will inevitably step in with heavy restrictions.
So the company has to be a compliant citizen first.
Exactly. Once that foundation is secure, we move to the second layer, organizational objectives.
Okay.
This is the blunt reality that HR isn't an end in itself. The department exists entirely to facilitate the primary business goals of the company.
Whether that's expanding market share, driving revenue, launching new products.
Right. And this involves strategic human resource planning and targeted selection.
So if the first two layers are about satisfying society and driving the bottom line, the third layer has to govern the internal mechanics, right? How HR actually calibrates its own performance.
Yes. The functional objectives. The HR department's level of service must be dynamically tailored to fit the organization's specific demands at any given moment.
So asking things like, are they deploying the right performance appraisal metrics for the current growth stage?
Exactly. Are they placing the right talent and the right teams at the right time?
And if those first three layers are functioning, they cascade down to the fourth and honestly most crucial layer for the listener, personal objectives.
Yes. HR must actively assist employees in achieving their individual goals, provided those goals enhance their contribution to the enterprise.
Let's look at the causality here because it's so important. If the functional objectives prioritize the company's immediate output so aggressively that the personal objectives like ongoing training, equitable compensation, career mapping, if those are ignored, the entire system collapses.
Completely. Motivation plummets, the operating system crashes, turnover spikes, and suddenly the organizational objectives fail.
These four layers really demonstrate why HRM sits as the central subsystem of any modern organization.
It interacts with finance, technology, and marketing constantly. None of those divisions can execute their strategies without the precise deployment of capable, motivated people.
But the ripple effect of this goes so far beyond just individual corporate success or professional growth. There is a macro, national significance to this framework that I think is easily overlooked.
It is. A nation's development relies primarily on the skills, attitudes, and values of its human resources.
Which is profound when you really think about it.
It is. If you look at the global economy, you see massive disparities in economic development between countries that possess nearly identical natural resources and geographic advantages.
And those differences exist almost entirely because of the quality, education, and strategic management of their people. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that the micro interactions happening in your office actually have macro implications.
Yep, exactly.
When your workplace invests in your ongoing training, or when management architectures are built to respect your individual innovation, they aren't just padding their quarterly margins. Effective management of human capital directly accelerates economic growth.
It drives higher standards of living and fuller employment for the entire country. The architecture we use to treat people at work ultimately scales up to define the wealth and health of the nation.
The responsibility is just immense.
It really is. Moving away from the commodity concept of labor, where workers were just ledger entries, wasn't just a corporate trend. It was a prerequisite for human progress.
It is a wild trajectory when we look back on it. I mean, we started in the pre-industrial era where labor was a commodity to be traded.
Right.
Then we shifted into the Industrial Revolution where workers were dissected by stopwatches as mere factors of production.
The Taylor era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we got slightly derailed by the pet milk principle, assuming human output could be managed like a dairy farm.
Happy cows.
Right. Until finally, we rebuilt the entire organizational operating system around behavioral science. We recognize that human capital is the volatile, complex, and innovative engine of the modern economy.
And that evolution is far from over.
Where are we heading next?
Well, we are currently transitioning into what researchers call the emerging concept stage.
The emerging concept.
Yes, this is where employees are increasingly treated as true partners, often compensated with equity and shares in the company stock.
So we've tracked the trajectory from a cost to be minimized to an equal partner in the enterprise. But I want to leave the listener with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up. Let's look at the horizon. Because right now, automation and artificial intelligence are rapidly absorbing not just the physical labor on the factory floor, but the administrative and analytical tasks in the office.
Oh, absolutely. The very nature of the tasks that require human intervention is shrinking.
Right. So what happens when the factory, the code base, or the legal review is fully automated? If the execution of tasks is handled by machines, what is the human resource left to do?
That's the big question.
It suggests a future where human capital is valued exclusively for the traits algorithms lack: empathy, lateral creativity, unique perspective.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the modern HR department will have to evolve one more time. It will stop being a mechanism for managing daily labor and transition into an entity dedicated purely to cultivating human philosophy and protecting the dignity of the human mind, just as Narayana Murthy warned us at the very beginning.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
It's a profound shift to consider the next time you log into your employee portal.